VulcanVerse, a virtual Olympus forged by the god of fire, Vulcan. I'm Nez.
And I'm Mios, and today we're going to be taking you to the Greek office to answer all of the questions that you, our community, have about VulcanVerse.
For this first podcast, we're going to be looking at the work of the Vulcan Studios art team, who are redesigning VulcanVerse, refactoring to improve performance, speed, and the overall look of our fantasy world. Let's head over to the office and hear from CEO Jamie Thompson and the team.
Hello guys, my name's Jamie Thompson, I'm the CEO of Vulcan Forged. As you know, the team's expanding rapidly to over 140 employees, but the main design team is here in Greece, and let's have a look around what they get up to in their work for designing VulcanVerse, our biggest game so far.
My name is Maria De Vivesi, or mostly known to the community as Renée Polymorphos. I'm the lead 2D artist and art director of the Greek team. I'm part of the Vulcan Forged ecosystem from the early days. You might have seen my design either in concept art, icons, user interface, and maybe some Vulcanites. Also, part of my task is to assist the team with art direction so that we can all follow the same style for the game and keep it consistent.
I'm Kimonas, the concept artist here with focus on the landmarks and the environments. So the process starts here initially by doing some research and looking at the lore that Dark Lord has written. After that, I do the drawings and some iterations and variations which get passed by the art lead behind me, Renée. Once all that's approved, I either do individual technical drawings or throw it into 3D where the block mesh process starts, where I can focus on lighting and shape. After that, they get passed on to Jimmy Sex and the 3D team for sculpting and further development.
I'm Luthi Medusa and I'm a 2D illustration artist designing some parts of the cards for Berserk and some icons for VulcanVerse, such as achievements and icons and baits for the fishing part of the game. These icons will be very small in size, so I have to create something very recognizable and use color palettes with very high contrasts. I have to catch the attention of the player with these icons, so a lot of the times I use some information from the lore of the game, or I even end up creating something a bit funny or super cute.
I'm Jimmy X, I'm a 3D zebra sculptor. The way I work is by taking a Kimonos concept and start sculpting the base for it. Then I focus on adding details on that high poly model. Retopo comes next before delivering it to another 3D artist to proceed the texturing.
My name is Katerina, also known as Arena V, and I'm a 3D artist. I work with 3D models, either by creating them from scratch or using existing models and texture them. Me and Asya, we received Kimona's concept and then we broke it down into parts. Each one of us created reusable assets called modulars, so we can increase the quality of it. I textured Necropolis entrance by using different layers, each one of which represent different color or roughness or bump. I usually work with real-life references so I can achieve a more realistic result.
My name is Athens, but you can call me Vakatosama. I've been here since the early days. I'm a 3D artist, and when I joined the team I was mostly working on building assets and NFT assets. Now that we are optimizing the decoration of the landmarks of the game, me and Arena, we are mostly working together. After we receive a concept art, we usually discuss the workflow that we're going to follow, the texture styles that we're going to use, the modularity and everything that has to do with the concept art. The statues of Necropolis were sculpted by GPSX and I did the texturing. I tried to depict the whole passage of time. You can see the mold that's forming in the corner, you can see all the cracks. Like, the whole project has a history on its own. It's amazing that we have created such a cooperative workflow, and each asset that you see in game has a touch by all of us.
D'une pipe en bois. Salut tout le monde, my name is Zibe, I'm a 3D artist and animator. I usually take concept from kimonos and then do the modeling, the retopology, the UVs and the texture. I also take character models from Katerina and Vulcanite from EMSX. Then I do the rigging, the animations. I plan on future update to rework the player avatar animations and redo the movements so they are more natural.
My name is Katerina. I'm the lead 3D artist of the art team. My main task is to turn 2D concept art into 3D models. I am also responsible for the validation of the assets that the team creates and give feedback for optimization. Currently I'm working on Druid's Shrine, which is a reworked version of the existing one. The purpose was to optimize this landmark for better game performance and improve the visual quality of it. Part of my duties is also the modeling and the texturing of the characters like Nissa and Fishmongers. I usually start with the creation of the base model of the character in ZBrush. Then I proceed to the costumes that I create on Marvelous Designer, which simulates cloth physics for realistic placement on the character's body.
I'm Alex and I'm a level designer. Basically what I do is decorate the environment with 3D assets that the art team provides, using concept art as guide for the look of landmarks and the surrounding areas. My goal is to create spaces that feel part of a living world. Currently, I'm testing a new weather system that will improve lighting and will later help us bring back the day-night cycle.
I'm Stratos, and my tasks here include level design along with Alex, visual effects, shaders and cinematics. The redesign process has been a difficult but very creative challenge for us, as we had to decorate all 4 quadrants from scratch using new assets to enrich the environment, but also keep the performance cost as low as possible. So besides the upcoming visual update for the environment, players can expect a gradual visual improvement of the landmarks too, as more are being worked on by the art team and will later be integrated in the game.
We asked some members of the team questions about the refactoring and design work going into VulcanVerse. To begin, I'll hand over to Meals, who has a question for David.
First off, who are you, where are you based, and what do you do here at Vulcan Forged?
Well, thanks, Meals. Look, my name is David. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Vulcan Forged. I've been with this project, or I should say this amazing project, since about November. And I'm based in Switzerland, not too far from the French border.
Thank you, David. A question for everyone. I'm sure it's something that will come right off the top of your heads. Describe VulcanVerse in 1 sentence.
VulcanVerse is a world rich in lore where players can create their own stories.
VulcanVerse for me is a real-time built-in world inspired by the Greco-Roman mythology in a mix with the fantasy twist.
Describing VulcanVerse in 1 sentence. It's gonna sound super cheesy, but I gotta say, a land of opportunity. Sounds like, familiar. But look, I love what VulcanVerse represents to our community. For some, I've seen it's a way to disconnect from the world. It's escaping, the usual grind and just going in a game and playing for a few hours, building, your own land and improving it and so on and so forth. For some others, it's a social environment. It's something that's, people enjoy because they get to connect with people not only inside but also outside of the game, in our Discord channel and other channels. And for others, it's just simply, being rewarded. It's getting something for spending some time in a game. But look, I think what I like the most, or what I love the most about all of this is this idea of NFT and NFTs and the concept of true ownership. It's something that's, for me, I'm really big on that, and just the idea that somebody who owns an NFT actually truly own an asset in the game. For me, it's a big thing. So yeah, for me, it's really, as I repeat, a land of opportunities.
Thank you all. One for David alone. We hear refactoring mentioned a lot. What does this mean, and why is it needed?
Thanks for the question, Ness. Look, refactoring, yes, it's not the sexiest word, to be honest. And initially when I got told about refactoring, I was like, oh, what the hell is that, right? What is it, and why is it needed? It's actually a big question. My understanding is that we have grown from being a small game with a couple of players to where we are today. With hundreds of players. It could be thousands sometimes. Hopefully, in the next. Soon enough will be in a thousands, and refactoring has been needed for a while, and we really wanted to walk the talk of what we keep hearing in that Web3 space, the concept of, oh yeah, we're all building during the bear market. Well, we are actually building during the bear market, and what we are doing is this concept of refactoring, which is essentially looking really hard and really looking strategically at what we need to do, what we needed to do for the game to be stable, for the game to be beautiful. And it was absolutely necessary for us to go through this boring concept of refactoring, right? Now when I say boring, yes, it is, it's not, it's what I call like the strategic thing to do, the sound thing to do. It is the boring things to do versus probably the more, what I would call the more tactical, fun feature release. Like if you were to release something, it would probably be much more entertaining than just a refactoring, right? So the way I kind of like to explain it to people is, it's like building a really, really cool house. And you want to build a swimming pool, you want to build a sauna, you want to build a bowling alley, you want to build all those things, right? You can't really build that really cool house if you don't have the right foundation. And that's kind of exactly what refactoring is doing. It's looking at that house and saying, look, we actually need to rebuild the foundation here for that game to be fun again and to be stable again. And that's really what we are doing. In terms of what we are specifically doing, look, I could probably ask one of the devs to come and talk today, because it's way beyond my understanding. Those guys are much better at the technical part of things, and they probably hate me for saying what I'm going to say next. But essentially, it's recoding the entire code source. It's ensuring that we are future-proofing our growth, to welcome the next wave of players. That's kind of like the way I summarize it. What that means for you guys, for players, it means, like as I said, a more stable game, something that's just not going to be as buggy, something that's not going to crash the servers every couple of days, every couple of hours. It's also a game that's going to look much better, that's going to behave much better. And that's going to allow us to basically do a lot more with it. So yeah, super excited about this.
If you could live anywhere in VulcanVerse, where would it be and why?
If I could live in VulcanVerse, that would be Acadia. I like all the corners for different reasons, but as a place to stay and under the weather and atmosphere condition, I would choose Arcadia.
Oh, that's an easy one, Mills. Look, I would I'm saying that's easy one because I live in Switzerland. So I already have Boris. So it's cold and snowy here, a lot of the time, at least in winter. I've got Arcadia in summer and spring. Switzerland is actually really beautiful. So look, I can't choose any of these. God, I would probably go for Nordis. Just to get a bit of a change. It feels like a bit of a more of a beachy area. So yeah, I'll go for Nordis. So that's my answer.
And for me, I think I'd probably go with Notus. I'm an island boy, so I really enjoy the sun and the sea, so I'd preferably be next to the port. And generally the hot weather is where I like to be.
Please describe the design process from concept to in-game asset.
So we start with a lot of research and back and forth amongst each other until we land on a design that fits the mood of each area. This can range from a whole landmark to specific statues and additional props that are needed for the game. Once the basic idea is down, we then develop and refine it further. A lot of times this means doing some basic modeling and texturing to get a feel of the world in 3D and as the player would. This then gets thrown back and forth to the design process where more detail is added and components are drawn out separately and broken down into many angles.
By working this way, we ensure that we can set mood appropriately and, most importantly, provide as much information as possible to the 3D team to make their lives easier. This is also part of the redesign process. On the one hand, we wanted to improve the visual aspects, but the main motive was to bring the world of VulcanVerse closer to the lore. Until now, some of the landmarks were not designed properly as there was no concept behind them and felt detached from the lore. Each quadrant should feel like it has its own unique identity and story.
What's your favourite part about working for Vulcan Forged?
My favorite part? I've got to say it's got to be this fast-paced environment and sort of the excitement of being able to touch on so many things. One day I might be working on VulcanVerse, and then the other day it might be on tower defense, and then another day it'd be on Elysium, and then across all those products, from day to day I can be working on PR, on press release. I can be working on setting up CRMs, like for an email campaign. I can be working on reviewing social, on strategizing for social. It's just that entire breadth of using my my marketing experience, but also being able to touch on so many exciting products with so much potential for each of them in a different way, but there is potential for all of them, and that's what excites me. Hope that answer your question.
At Vulcan Forged, we're known for being transparent, and for this reason, the community know what to expect. Question for David: is there anything you can reveal today that players are not yet aware of?
I knew this would come. I knew you would start to ask the hard questions. Look, before answering this question directly, I think what I want to talk about is the fact that what I have seen so far is that we are all absolutely passionate about this project. I've seen people spending time in the game, and I know that it's something that's quite emotional, just not only for players, but even for us, working for Vulcan Forged, because some of us play, daily on this. So, obviously when we talked about refactoring, that might not be the fun things to do, but we all know that it's for the best. As you said, we always aim to be transparent. Look, that's what make our strength as a key leading Web3 project above a lot of other projects in that space. It is actually one of the reasons why I really wanted to work for Vulcan Forged, and when I had that conversation, that initial conversation with Jamie, that's really what got me. That's what sold me to Vulcan Forged, is this idea of being transparent and not, fluffing too much, with what we can say or not say. But look, I kind of feel like with that in mind, we kind of have already revealed quite a lot, throughout the last few days, the last few weeks. But here is what I can say to you guys. Look, I know that the dev team that is actually working on VulcanVerse, they're fully committed to this. There's no fluff happening at the moment. There's no distraction. Refactoring is truly the only thing that they are working on, and they are working super hard on this. What I can say, Renee, Kimon, those guys and other guys in the design team, they actually have already started sending designs and assets to the dev team. So now what's happening is it's being tested, it's being QA'd, and then now next it's going to be implemented. So we are definitely on track with the refactoring. At this stage, we actually doing quite well, and so well that we are evaluating the capacity and the outputs of the refactoring going a bit faster than what we wanted. But one thing I can tell you is that we're not going to compromise on quality. So if delivering something earlier means that we are going to bring something completely broken, then we are not okay with it. This time we really want to do this right and bring this the right way. In terms of what the dev guys are doing at the moment, I know that they're actually looking much more forward, in a timeline than just the refactoring, right? Like, obviously, refactoring is what's keeping them busy now, but it doesn't mean that, they're not thinking of what's going to happen next, right? I can't talk much more about, what that means, but what I know is that they are potentially looking at delivering something right off the bat when we have refactoring done. It might come a bit earlier than refactoring. It might come right on time when we deliver refactoring, but they're definitely working on something, and it's definitely something that everybody is looking forward to. So that's what I can say. I'm fairly cryptic, but yeah, hopefully I'm not giving too much away, not to put too much commitment and too much pressure on our dev team.
Refactoring is a really important step to smooth out gameplay and improve visuals across VulcanVerse, also improving immersion at the same time. But will there be a point where VulcanVerse's refactoring work is definitively finished, or will there continue to be improvements to the game engine alongside expanding gameplay in the future?
Thanks for your question, Miels. Look, it's actually a really good question, and let's be clear. The chunk of the refactoring will be done, soon and completed soon. That doesn't mean that the work is fully completed, right? For example, what you'll see when the refactoring is delivered, that we still have to redesign a lot of the landmarks, and that's going to be an ongoing process across the next few months, if that answers your question. But you are like 200% correct. Once that refactoring is delivered, and that specific part of the update coming, in the next couple of weeks-ish kind of thing, a bit more than a couple of weeks, but yeah, we'll be in a much better position to deliver and expand the gameplay, right? I think like what I wanted to give you reassurance is that internally, with the dev guys, with the PM, with Jamie, we have actually worked pretty hard on putting together a matrix that allows us to what's the right word here, pragmatically feed the pipelines with new features and bring the best outcome for the community, for the players, and for the ecosystem as a whole. To put this in other words, it means that like we know what feature we might want to bring forward to the game or in the game, and it's really a subtle balance of working the time it takes to do this, while also continuing to deliver exciting things. Look, internally, we've worked actually quite hard on putting a matrix together, and what that allows us to do is to actually pragmatically feed the pipeline of with new features that's meant to be delivering and bringing the best outcome for the community, for the players, for the ecosystem as a whole, right? But it's really a subtle balance of the time it takes to do something versus continuing to deliver exciting things. So, for example, some features might take a bit less time, right? But they probably are a bit less appealing to players, while some others might take much longer, and they are much more appealing, right? So in that case, what do? Do you keep focusing on, the really long timelines of delivering something every 12 weeks? Or do you try to deliver things every couple of weeks and then hopefully deliver something major, every once a quarter or twice a quarter? And it's really kind of like figuring out how things fit together. It's really kind of like a bit of a puzzle. The other thing is the concept of dependencies, and Yap, who is our PM, for VulcanVerse, and some other guys, other PMs like Sheldon and stuff. One of the big word that they use all the time is that concept of dependencies. And essentially it's, simple terms is, look, if we have 3 or 4 features that we could do at the same time and allows us to save some time on delivering these, should we deliver these 3 or 4 all at the same time? So that means that if one feature takes 2 weeks every time and we have 4 features, technically if we were to do them sequentially, that would take 8 weeks, right? Plain and simple. What we're saying is that, well, maybe those 4 features, if they are being done together, instead of spending 8 weeks on it, because we're doing them individually, now we can do them together and they can be done in 5 weeks. So that's sort of the idea of, dependencies and gaining efficiencies here and there. So yeah, it's really kind of like that subtle balance. One of the 2 questions that we do ask ourselves every time in terms of evaluating some of the features, the 2 most important questions I would say is, will that make players happy? Is this something that we are going to put out there and people are going to be pleased with? And the second one is it contributing to grow our ecosystem as a whole, right? So sometimes, refactoring, is a prime example of something that's going to contribute to grow the ecosystem. It's probably a bit less making players happy, but nonetheless probably still doing that. In some cases, for example, we did fishing, back in December, I believe. That really made the player happy. That probably did not contribute major to grow our ecosystem, substantially. That's sort of the example here.
The concept and general artwork lends itself to the lore and vice versa. Does the art and design team have a working brief based on Jamie Thompson's and Dave Morris's VulcanVerse game books?
Generally, when it comes to landmarks, the first step before working on them is the research phase. The books and the lore is the heart of the game. Therefore, the design decisions are very heavily influenced by them.
Additionally, when we are unsure about something, we can contact Jamie Thompson or Dark Lord directly and get his immediate input to make sure we are as close as we can be to the source material.
And one last question for you. What makes you most excited about the future of VulcanVerse?
What makes me the most excited about the future of VulcanVerse? Look, I think it's actually the whole ecosystem beyond just VulcanVerse. Is this idea of connecting, all our games together, is to connect our lore together, is to bring back our lore at the center of what we are doing, and almost like some of the key strategic decisions that we are making in the business. That's probably what I'm the most excited about. It's to see, by us building important things today and continuously improving what we are doing on a day-to-day basis, what's going to be the output and what's going to be the results during that next, bull run, for example. What's going to be the impact on player activity? Are we going to see more players playing for longer? Are we going to see a player being in the verse, on a Friday night, when he's on or she's on her PC, and then, comes Monday morning, well, they go back to work and they're in the train playing Vulcan's Runner, for example, and they collect XPs that they can then use back into the verse. That's probably what really excites me about the verse in general, if I were to sort of define that.
We are always excited to work on new features and concepts in the game. The world building is huge with unlimited possibilities. New things are coming, including assets, creature characters, and landmarks. Are you excited?
Always excited. Thank you all for answering the questions.
Well, look, thanks so much, Niels. Thanks so much, Ness, as usual. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Hopefully, I've been able to answer some of your questions. I know you probably have, the community probably has even more questions, but hopefully that really give you a bit of a view of what's going on in the background at VulcanVerse. All right, thank you guys. Bye.